I still remember the cold weight of my phone in my hands that night. The screen glowed with evidence I couldn't ignore. Text messages, hotel receipts, photos that weren't meant for my eyes. My husband of 12 years, Daniel, had been living a double life with my friend Olivia for the past 8 months. 8 months. I sat on our bedroom floor, back against the wall, scrolling through their exchanges. Words of passion, plans for their future, complaints about me, my work schedule, my trust issues, my ignorance. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd trusted too much, not too little. "You still up, babe?" Daniel called from downstairs. His voice, once the sound that made my heart skip, now made my stomach turn. I quickly locked my phone. "Just finishing some work emails," I replied, surprised by how steady my voice sounded when everything inside me was collapsing. I remember thinking, I should be screaming. I should be throwing things. I should be confronting him right now. But something deeper, something colder took over. A clarity I'd never experienced before. "I'm heading to bed. Early meeting tomorrow," he said. The casual lie rolled off his tongue so effortlessly. His meeting was actually a breakfast date with Olivia at their favorite spot, according to the texts I'd just read. "Okay. Sweet dreams," I called back, the words tasting like ash. How many nights had he slept beside me after being with her? How many showers had he taken to wash away her scent before climbing into our bed? How many times had I sensed something off but convinced myself I was being paranoid? I waited until I heard his soft snores before sliding back into bed, keeping as much distance between us as possible. I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. The betrayal wasn't just about the affair. It was about the elaborate web of lies, the careful planning, the calculated deception. This wasn't a mistake or a moment of weakness. This was methodical. And Olivia, my friend, the woman who had cried on my shoulder about her own relationship problems with her husband James, the same woman who'd accepted dinner invitations to our home, sat across from me with a smile while her foot played with my husband's under the table. I'd accidentally discovered everything while using Daniel's laptop to order a surprise anniversary gift. A notification popped up, a hotel confirmation for the following weekend, the same weekend he'd told me he was going fishing with colleagues. One click led to another, and his entire secret life unraveled before my eyes. The next morning, I watched Daniel prepare for his day, whistling, adjusting his tie, checking his watch. The perfect picture of a devoted husband heading to work. He kissed my forehead before leaving. I felt nothing but a strange fascination at his performance. "Have a good day," he said with a smile that never reached his eyes. "You too," I replied, thinking, "You have no idea what's coming." After he left, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. I needed space to think, to plan. I wasn't going to confront him in tears. I wasn't going to beg for explanations or throw accusations. I'd already seen all the evidence I needed. No, this required something different, something they wouldn't expect. I made coffee and sat at our kitchen island, staring at the wedding photos hanging on our wall. We looked so happy, so in love. Was it real then? When did it change? Or had I been playing a part in someone else's story all along without realizing it? My phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. "Lunch next week? Miss our talks." The audacity nearly made me laugh. Or scream. I wasn't sure which. I set my phone down without replying. She'd get her answer soon enough, just not in the way she expected. As the hours passed, my shock crystallized into something harder, sharper. Every memory was now tainted. Every loving moment called into question. The Valentine's Day when Daniel was working late but came home with flowers and chocolate. Had he been with her first? The weekend trip he'd canceled because of work emergencies? Had they been together at some hotel, laughing at my gullibility? I picked up my phone again and dialed a number I'd never called before. "Hello?" A deep male voice answered. "James? This is Catherine, Olivia's friend," I said, my heart pounding. "I think we need to talk." There was a pause on the other end. "About what, exactly?" "About our spouses, and what they've been doing behind our backs." Another pause. Longer this time. "I'm listening." That conversation changed everything. James had suspected something but had no proof. Now we both had all the evidence we needed. And as we talked, a plan began to form. Not a plan born of blind rage, but something more precise, more fitting. "What do you want to do?" James asked after I laid out what I'd discovered. I took a deep breath. "I think we should invite them to dinner," I said. "A very special dinner." The week leading up to our dinner party was surreal. I moved through my days like a ghost, watching Daniel continue his charade. Every "I love you" felt like a knife twist. Every working late text message was met with my simple, "Okay, miss you," while I knew exactly where he was and who he was with. On Tuesday night, Daniel came home with takeout and a bottle of wine, a peace offering for being absent lately. He blamed work pressure, client demands. I nodded sympathetically and poured the wine. "You're the best, Kath," he said, squeezing my hand across the table. "I don't deserve you." That, at least, was honest. "Actually," I said, keeping my voice casual, "I was thinking of hosting a dinner this weekend. Nothing fancy. Just us and James and Olivia." His fork paused halfway to his mouth. A flicker of panic crossed his face before he recovered. "Any special occasion?" he asked, too carefully. I shrugged. "No, just been a while since we've had friends over. And you know how I miss entertaining." He nodded slowly. "Sure. Sounds nice." I watched him pull out his phone later that night, surely texting Olivia about this unexpected complication. I imagined their panic, their hasty planning. Would they cancel? Make excuses? I almost hoped they would. It would only confirm their guilt. But they didn't. Olivia texted me the next morning. "Love the dinner idea. Can I bring anything? Wine? Dessert?" The performance continued. I responded with cheerful suggestions, as if I were still the oblivious friend, the trusting wife. I cleaned the house on Saturday morning, prepared an elaborate meal, set the table with our best china. Daniel watched me nervously. "You're going all out," he commented, hovering in the kitchen doorway. "I want everything to be perfect," I replied with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. When the doorbell rang at exactly 7 p.m., Daniel jumped. I wiped my hands on a towel and went to answer it, touching his arm reassuringly as I passed him. "Relax," I whispered. "It's just dinner." James stood at the door with a bottle of expensive scotch and a tight smile. He played his part perfectly, the oblivious husband, greeting Daniel with a handshake, complimenting our home. Olivia arrived 10 minutes later, flustered and overdressed, carrying a bakery box. "Sorry I'm late," she chirped, hugging me too tightly. "James and I had to take separate cars. He came straight from the office." I accepted her hug, feeling her heart pounding against mine. Was it fear? Excitement? Guilt? "No problem at all," I assured her, taking the dessert box. "We're just getting started." The four of us moved to the living room for drinks. I watched them carefully. The way Daniel and Olivia avoided eye contact, the careful distance they maintained, the nervous way they both drank too quickly. "So, James," Daniel said, clearly trying to keep things normal. "How's the new project going?" James smiled thinly. "Challenging. Lots of unexpected developments." I caught his eye briefly. We'd prepared for this evening meticulously. Dinner proceeded with excruciating small talk. Work stories, neighborhood gossip, politics, weather. All while underneath, currents of tension swirled. I served course after course, playing the perfect hostess while watching my husband's hand shake slightly as he reached for his wine glass. After the main course, I stood to clear the plates. "Olivia, would you mind helping me in the kitchen for a moment?" She followed me, eager perhaps for a moment away from the tension in the dining room. As we stood side by side at the counter, preparing dessert plates, she tried for normalcy. "Everything is delicious, Kath. You've outdone yourself." I placed 4 small plates on a tray. "Thank you. I wanted tonight to be memorable." "Is everything okay?" she asked, noticing something in my tone. "You seem different." I looked directly into her eyes. "Actually, I've been different for about a week now, since I found out about you and Daniel." The color drained from her face. She opened her mouth, closed it again. I don't know what you're—" "Please don't." I cut her off, my voice still low, controlled. "Don't insult me with denials. I've seen everything. the texts, the photos, the hotel receipts. I know about the apartment viewings. I know about the plans to leave in the spring. I know it all, Olivia. She gripped the counter, her knuckles white. Catherine, I can explain. Save it, I said, picking up the dessert tray. You can explain to both of us. To your husband, too. Her eyes widened. James knows. I smiled coldly. We've had some interesting conversations this week, very enlightening. I walked back toward the dining room, Olivia frozen behind me. Are you coming? I called over my shoulder. Dessert is served. As Olivia and I returned to the dining room, I could feel her panic radiating beside me. Daniel looked up, his smile faltering when he saw her face. James sat calmly, swirling the scotch in his glass, a dangerous glint in his eyes. I set the dessert plates down carefully. Each one held a small chocolate mousse cake with a decorative garnish, and something else. Beneath each garnish on Daniel and Olivia's plates lay printed screenshots of their intimate text exchanges. Before we dig in, I said, taking my seat, I thought we might talk about honesty in relationships. Daniel's eyes darted from me to Olivia, to the untouched dessert plates. Catherine, what's going on? He asked, his voice tight. I tilted my head. Why don't you tell us, Daniel? Or better yet, why don't you and Olivia explain together? You two seem to be quite good at collaboration. The silence was deafening. Olivia remained standing, her back against the wall. Daniel looked like he might be sick. I think, James said, breaking the silence, that they're waiting for us to have a meltdown. Tears, accusations, the usual betrayed spouse routine. He looked at me. Should we give them what they expect, Catherine? I shook my head. I've cried enough in private. Tonight isn't about our pain. It's about consequences. Daniel pushed his plate away, finally finding his voice. This is ridiculous. Whatever you think you know. Go ahead, I interrupted, nodding toward his dessert plate. Look underneath. Both of you. Slowly, reluctantly, Daniel lifted the garnish on his dessert. His face went ashen as he recognized his own words. I can't wait to wake up next to you every morning instead of her. Just a few more months of pretending. Olivia hadn't moved. James stood, took her plate, and handed it to her. You should see what's on yours too, darling. Her hands trembled as she read the printout. Tears welled in her eyes. James, I'm so sorry. Don't. He cut her off. Don't pretend this is a momentary lapse. Don't insult us with apologies for getting caught. I'd spent the week with James, planning every detail of this confrontation. Not out of vengeance, though that would have been justified, but out of a need for clarity, for control over an ugly situation that had been happening behind our backs. Here's what you might not know about betrayal. It's not just about the affair. It's about the life that's stolen from you without your knowledge. The right to make informed choices about your own future. Daniel and Olivia hadn't just betrayed our trust. They'd robbed us of agency in our own lives. We have questions, I said, my voice steady. And you're going to answer them, truthfully. Consider it the least you can do. Daniel slumped in his chair. Catherine, can we please discuss this privately? This is between you and me. No, James and I said simultaneously. This involved all four of us, I continued. So we'll all hear the truth. Together. What followed was 2 hours of painful revelation. Every question answered. Every lie exposed. The apartment they'd been looking at together. The joint bank account they'd opened. The trips they'd planned for after they left us. With each admission, their shame grew. And strangely, my pain receded. There's power in knowing, in bringing secrets into the light. Why the elaborate dinner? Daniel finally asked, his voice hoarse. Why not just confront us normally? I exchanged glances with James before answering. Because you treated our marriages like a game, I said. You enjoyed the secrecy, the plotting, the double life. We wanted you to understand how it feels when the script flips, when you're not the ones controlling the narrative. And, James added, because after tonight, neither of us ever wants to see either of you again. This isn't the beginning of a long, messy separation. This is the end. Daniel's head snapped up. What does that mean? I reached into my purse and pulled out a folder, sliding it across the table. Divorce papers. Already prepared. All the terms are outlined clearly. Olivia gasped. You can't possibly expect us to sign tonight. Actually, James interrupted. There's more. He withdrew a similar folder from his jacket. Financial records, evidence, text messages, hotel receipts, a complete timeline of your affair going back 8 months. Daniel paled. Why would you compile all that? I leaned forward. Because both of you work for companies with strict morality clauses in your contracts. Because Olivia is up for partnership at her law firm, and Daniel just secured that major client who specifically chose him for his family values image. Understanding dawned on their faces. You wouldn't, Olivia whispered. We haven't decided yet, James replied coolly. That depends entirely on how smoothly things proceed from here. As they stared at the documents before them, I felt an odd sense of calm. The weeks of planning, of coordinating with James, of consulting with attorneys, it had all led to this moment. Not a screaming match or a tearful confrontation, but a carefully orchestrated transfer of power. You have 2 choices, I said. Sign the papers tonight, agree to our terms, and we'll keep this matter private. Or fight us, and everything gets exposed. To your employers, families, friends, everyone. Daniel looked at me with new eyes, not with love or even hatred, but with something like fear. He'd never seen this side of me before. To be fair, neither had I. This is blackmail, Daniel finally said, his voice shaking. James laughed without humor. Interesting moral high ground from the man sleeping with my wife. I studied my husband's face, the man I'd loved for over a decade, now a stranger sitting across from me. It's not blackmail. It's a choice. A clean break or a messy one. You get to decide. Olivia had finally taken a seat, her perfect makeup streaked with tears. What are your terms? She asked quietly. Smart. She was always the pragmatic one. I nodded at James, who outlined our conditions clearly. The divorce settlements were fair, perhaps even generous, but with non-negotiable points. No alimony, clear division of assets, and a non-disclosure agreement binding all parties. And one more thing, I added. You don't get to control the narrative. No stories about growing apart or mutual decisions. When people ask, you tell them the truth, that you betrayed us, and we chose to walk away. Daniel ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I once found endearing. This is insane. You've been planning this for how long? Not as long as you've been planning to leave me, I replied evenly. As they reviewed the documents, I remembered the night James and I had first met to discuss what we'd discovered. We'd chosen a quiet bar 3 towns over, both of us shell-shocked and raw. I thought I was going crazy, he'd confessed. Little things not adding up. Coming home to find her just out of the shower at odd hours. Weekend errands taking twice as long as they should. I'd nodded, familiar with the same pattern of small suspicions I'd dismissed for months. What do you want to do? I'd asked him. His answer surprised me. I want to walk away with my dignity intact. I want control over how this ends. We'd spent the next week building our case and our exit strategy. Not out of vengeance, but self-preservation. We deserved to dictate the terms of our own lives again. Now, watching Daniel and Olivia read through our carefully crafted documents, I felt no triumph, no vindictive pleasure, just a deep certainty that I was reclaiming my future. If I sign this, Daniel said, looking up from the papers, what happens then? Then you leave, I replied simply. Tonight. Pack a bag and go to that apartment you've been viewing, or a hotel. I don't care. But you don't stay here. And my things? You can arrange to collect them next week when I'm at work. James has agreed to supervise. Daniel's eyes widened. You two have really thought of everything, haven't you? We had to, James said flatly. You gave us no choice. Olivia looked up from the papers, her expression calculating despite her tears. And if we refuse to sign tonight? If we want our own lawyers to review these? I smiled thinly. Then by morning, your respective employers will receive very interesting email packages, as will your parents, Daniel, and your sisters, Olivia. Everyone will know exactly what kind of people you are. You wouldn't, she challenged. I leaned forward. 8 months, Olivia. 8 months you were sleeping with my husband while looking me in the eye as my friend. You sat in my kitchen drinking wine I poured, complaining about your marriage to James while sleeping with my husband. You hugged me after my father's funeral while planning weekend getaways with Daniel. Don't test me. Something in my voice must have convinced her. She picked up the pen James had placed on the table and signed her name on the indicated lines. After a moment's hesitation, Daniel did the same. The room felt different immediately. Lighter somehow, as if a storm had passed. "Is that it?" Daniel asked, his voice small. I nodded. "That's it. You should pack now." As Daniel went upstairs to collect his things, James pulled me aside. "You okay?" he asked quietly. "I will be," I replied. Olivia stood awkwardly by the door, her designer purse clutched like a shield. "I truly am sorry," she said. "I never meant to get caught?" I finished for her. "Save it, Olivia. Just go." When Daniel came back downstairs with a hastily packed suitcase, he paused in front of me. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd married. Uncertain, vulnerable. "I did love you, Kath," he said softly. Maybe not the right way, but I did. I looked at him for a long moment. That's the saddest part, isn't it? That your version of love could coexist with such betrayal. He had no answer for that. As they walked out the door, not together, I noticed, but separately to their cars, I felt no satisfaction, no sense of victory. Just the quiet certainty that I'd handled an unimaginable situation with dignity and strength I didn't know I possessed. James touched my shoulder. "Need company?" I shook my head. "No. I think I need to be alone tonight. Process everything." He nodded, understanding. "I'll call you tomorrow. We'll get through this." After he left, I walked through my suddenly empty house, into the kitchen where half-eaten desserts still sat on plates. I began clearing the table mechanically, wrapping up food that no one had really eaten, washing dishes, wiping surfaces clean. Around midnight, I opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. This qualified, I decided. Not a celebration, but a commemoration. The end of one life, the beginning of another. The week after the dinner, as I came to think of it, passed in a blur of practical matters. Changing locks, notifying banks, fielding confused calls from friends who'd heard rumors, but not the full story. "Daniel and I are divorcing," I said simply when asked. "He was having an affair with Olivia. Yes, James and Olivia are also separating. No dramatics, no embellishments, just facts." The reactions were predictable. Shock, awkward sympathy, the occasional tasteless curiosity. I handled them all with the same calm detachment I discovered during the dinner. This new version of myself, decisive, clear-eyed, uncompromising, was a stranger I was slowly getting to know. Daniel attempted to call several times. I let the calls go to voicemail, listening to his increasingly desperate messages with clinical interest rather than pain. "Catherine, please. We need to talk about this like adults. I think we should meet for coffee. Just to clear the air. You're not being fair. 12 years together deserves more than this." The last one almost made me laugh. Fair? He wanted to talk about fair? I texted him once. All communication through the attorneys from now on. James and I met for dinner 1 month after everything happened. Not a date, we were both too raw for that, but a check-in between two people who'd walked through fire together. "How are you really doing?" he asked as we shared a bottle of wine. I considered the question carefully. "Lighter," I finally said. "Like I've put down something I didn't realize I was carrying." He nodded, understanding. "Olivia moved to Chicago, partner track at a different firm." "Good for her," I said, surprised to find I meant it. "Distance is probably best for everyone." "And Daniel?" I shrugged. "Living with his brother from what I hear. The divorce should be final in a few weeks." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. "Do you regret it?" he asked suddenly. "The dinner? The way we handled it?" I thought about that night, the careful planning, the controlled confrontation, the strategic exit. "No," I said finally. "It wasn't about revenge. It was about taking back control of a situation where they'd stolen our choices. We deserved that." 3 months later, my divorce was finalized with surprisingly little drama. Daniel had ultimately accepted all terms, perhaps understanding that fighting would only prolong his humiliation. I heard through mutual friends that he and Olivia had already broken up. Apparently, relationships built on lies rarely survive exposure to the light. I sold our house, too many memories, both good and bad, and bought a smaller place closer to downtown. New space, new beginning. I changed my hair, took up kickboxing, reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during my marriage. James and I continued our friendship, careful and respectful of each other's healing process. Sometimes shared trauma creates bonds stronger than romance ever could. 6 months after the dinner, I ran into Daniel at a coffee shop. The universe has a peculiar sense of humor sometimes. He looked older, diminished somehow. "Catherine?" he said, clearly startled. "You look good." "Thank you," I replied, meaning it. "How are you?" He shrugged. "Managing. Working a lot." He hesitated. "I miss you sometimes." I studied him. This man I'd once built my life around. "I don't miss you," I said honestly. "I miss who I thought you were." He flinched but nodded. "I deserve that. It's not about what you deserve anymore, Daniel. It's about me moving forward." As I walked away with my coffee, I realized something important. The dinner party hadn't just been about exposing their betrayal. It had been about exposing my own strength, a strength I hadn't known existed until I needed it. Sometimes the most unexpected moments in our lives reveal who we truly are. Not the affairs or the betrayals. Those reveal the character of others. But how we respond, that reveals our own. I chose dignity over drama, strategy over screaming, self-respect over self-pity. And on nights when doubts creep in, when I wonder if I was too calculated or too cold, I remember something my grandmother once told me. "Sometimes, darling, the most powerful thing you can do when someone hurts you is to simply decide they no longer matter." That dinner party was my decision, my reclamation, my power, and I've never